How Kitchen Copilot Uses AI.
The Azure and DevOps podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using the latest in .NET, Azure, AI, and DevOps. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. The show is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a full-service software architecture and engineering firm. Find them at www.clearmeasure.com. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host for helping you and your teams move fast and deliver quality and to run your software with confidence in Azure, all while using everything that the .NET ecosystem has to offer. Let's get right into our guest, a returning guest, Scott Forsyth. Scott has spent over 25 years in the IT field working in disciplines such as systems architecture, software development, team growth, and entrepreneurship. And he was a Microsoft MVP for 12 years in ASP.NET and IIS, and he's co-authored 2 books on IIS 7 and 8. He's a Pluralsight author. He's spoken at various conferences, code camps, and user groups, probably too many to list. And he's now shifted into the AI space, building AI solutions and supporting others in their AI journey. And he's co-founded a new startup, Kitchen Copilot. And it uses all the new GenAI tech to help people cook more at home and eat healthier. So, Scott, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. For those who haven't seen your previous episode, which I'll include a link to the show notes and encourage people to go back. Kind of rewinding back in your journey, once you top over the 20-year mark, the young programmers, look at you and say, "Man, I don't know what I was doing when he started in the field." But if you could rewind and enumerate maybe some high points that were instrumental in, kind of leading you to what you are working on today.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, wow. So going back in time, it's been a crazy adventure starting in the late 90s. So I was just the last couple of years of the 90s is when I really got started. And a lot of things hadn't been established yet. So everything. I remember CSS being introduced and all of these. And so it was quite an adventure of navigating those waters, trying out things like Perl as a programming language and CGI, meaning something different than you have in the video industry and all of that. So that was great. And it was just a booming time. There was just so much opportunity. You could jump in. Anyone who just poured their time and love into what they're doing, there's so much opportunity there. So that got me started. I had an opportunity working for a company, ORCS Web. It was a hosting company. I started that, probably around 2002. And I worked from Canada for a year. And then they talked me in, it was an easy talk, but they talked me into moving down. And that, starting to work with them, they were very connected with the Microsoft ecosystem, the Microsoft MVP space, ASP Insiders, and all that. And so I had an opportunity within about a year of that to get nominated as a Microsoft MVP and ASP Insider. So that was really neat in the early days of ASP.NET to hang out on the Microsoft campus once or sometimes even more than once per year. And with all the Scott Guthries and all these influential people as they also progressed through the whole ecosystem. And so that was amazing. I did that for about a decade, and that was the hosting space. People always ask, what do you do? Mm-hmm. And I say, well, it's kind of the part of the internet that no one knows is there. And of course, now it's all been replaced with the cloud hosting. There's a lot less hosting. It's more specialized now. And before you kind of had to do your own or go with hosts like we were. And now there's just a few big players that are starting to take over. And so I did that for a while. And then I had another decade working for a company called Dynamic Web and recently was acquired. And so I worked with them for 11 years during the fundamental years. And that was an opportunity just to grow the team. We started with just half a dozen of us and eventually started one by one, introducing new departments, establish what a delivery team looks like, software architecture, the standards and processes and everything else. And that was also in the Microsoft ecosystem. That was the Dynamics space. And so so that was an amazing opportunity that I was able to do there as well. And so that gave me kind of 10 years in system architecture, 10, 11 years in the software delivery and overlapping during that. I did some of each on both of those. So, and then last year and a half, I just decided it was time to step out in the AI and just jump in with both feet. And so I did that. I spent the first 2 months doing that without really, I purposely said, I'm not going to make any decisions on what I'm doing next. I'm just going to jump in, experiment, learn, try, kick the tires, learn whatever I could. And I did that. And then in the process, around 2 to 3 months into that, I ended up aligning with my co-founder, Noah Minyika, on Kitchen Copilot. He already had a real passion for bringing tooling to the culinary space. So realizing there's a lot of tools out there, but there's no household name that really works, that will help you with the training. How do you make it easier to cook? How do you make it easier to plan? People are lost all the time, or especially starting new diets. There's so much research that's needed, and how do you track your calories and the macronutrients and micronutrients and everything else? And so we've set out, and we're partway along that journey to build a tool set, a platform that really offers a lot of opportunities for users to make a lot of that easier. And then because a year and a half ago, I mentioned we started, we're right in the middle of the generative AI boom. And it gives us so much opportunity that the platforms in the past weren't able to leverage. So we're able to do so much more than was able to be done before. And so we're looking forward to it. We believe that we can offer a lot. There's some big gaps that people have. Many people realize the gaps. Many people don't realize the gaps yet. And so we have a lot of opportunity to fill that space. So at a high level, that's been kind of brought me to where I am today.
Wow. So this is kind of fascinating because we've had other guests talking about various aspects of software and cloud and generative AI and all the tech, but you've got a software product that people can use out there now. It's live on the web, and I've kind of run through its paces and been pretty interested. And actually, my wife and I are both on the journey of asking that question. Okay, we've kind of ballooned in the last 5 years. How do we rewind to 2019 from a body stature perspective? And eating healthy is a huge part of that. So, besides just creating a cool software application that, and I'll touch on the high points of meal plans and recipes and figuring out how to cook and kind of advice there. From a feature perspective, what features absolutely need a large language model that are just kind of, you can't think of any feasible way to do it without a large language model,
right?
Or a small language model?
Yeah, good question. Well, one of the ones right now is the voice chatbot. And so adding voice navigation, if we talked 2 years ago, it would be go next, go previous, go to step 3, right? It's memorized words. And that's really the few that had something like that in the past. But now it's like, okay, so what's step number 3? And okay, can you show me a video on my screen of how to dice onions, right? And you can talk it through. And then now with the function use that you have, we can start to push videos to the mobile app as people are asking. We can say, set a timer. Okay, how many minutes are left on the timer? But it doesn't have to be these memorized words. And you just converse with it and say, oh, what do you recommend for spices? This isn't quite spicy enough in this way. What do you recommend? And it responds back to you sounding very, very human-like and makes it so much easier. So that's definitely something that only an LLM, large language model, would be able to achieve. That in the past was just more deterministic, is more you have to memorize, here's the list of words that you could use versus conversational that we have now.
So this sounds almost like a cooking coach in the kitchen. Like if I have an iPad or a phone or something and set it up and I never learned how to cook. I don't know what the heck an aromatic is, or all my spices are powders in jars. I don't know if they came from real foods or not at some point. Give us a main use case. Like where does it start? Do plan a meal, look for a recipe? How does it flow?
Yeah, well, that's part of what we're still need to determine, because we're starting broad and we do need to narrow in. Any successful business needs to have a more of a narrow audience for a while. And so we're still in the broad area. where we have a lot of options for people. So there is what we say is we're two things. We're a productivity tool for meal planning as well as recipe discovery for health and wellness. And so we pull that together. So imagine if you're looking and saying, hey, I need some new ideas with my current diet. I'm on a Whole30 diet or a keto diet or something like that. And I want some new ideas that I can use. And I want to make sure that I get enough nutrients throughout the week. So at least certain percentage of meals need to have certain things. So mix it up. It's not just a cookie cutter plan. And be able to build that. But then once you put that plan together, then you don't want that to get lost. I do a lot of manual steps with pen and paper or, that. So imagine visualizing the plan on a real nice visual. Here's what my week looks like. The family, imagine a shared plan. The family can look on it and, you say, okay, yeah, the kids are allowed to decide on Thursday from a pool of options. But the rest of the week, it's, mom's planning all of that idea. And so you have a nice plan. And then from the plan, you can generate your shopping list and have a nice one. You can pick what you have. Certain things, obviously, you have in the house, so you don't need to worry about that, and then send them off to a store. And then ideally, coming later is the ability to place the order itself for either pickup, delivery, or potentially at some point, we'll also plan to have store navigation. You ever go to a new store and how much you're hunting around the aisles, and it's like, oh, I don't want to be asked to go and pick this up on the way home from work because I have no idea where that is. And so all of those are available. And then that's the planning. And then when you get to the actual cooking, imagine being able to, sometimes you're just looking on your phone, you're listening to something in the background. You don't want something out loud, but other times you may want to talk it through. Your hands are messy. You don't want to have to try to slide down a screen with your elbow or print off the recipe each time. And you want that available to you. And so we want to offer some guidance. And you mentioned a little bit about the training upcoming chefs, cooks as well. And so that's important for us also, is to have a whole training and discovery. Imagine going through with someone saying, hey, let's start. You're beginner. Pick which cuisine type you want. We'll teach you all the basics from some good, well-known chefs, well-respected chefs. And then we'll move from the beginner level to the intermediate up to the advanced. And we can guide people through the whole process. So we really have an end-to-end solution, of which many of the things I just mentioned we have in place today, and many of those are still to come. And it gives us the infrastructure now to start to be focused. Do we focus more on the training? Do we focus on the productivity tool, the sharing with the community, getting people of like-minded people that you can share together? So there's a number of opportunities there, and we're positioning ourselves to be able to pivot quickly and build up each of those spaces, but pivot in the area that makes the most sense.
Nice. I was looking at I'm just browsing one of the categories, and I noticed that you link recipes from all kinds of different websites out on the net. But then when I added something to my meal plan, it's almost like it summarizes the recipe and then gives me the ingredients. What's the technical process like under the covers? How do you make that work?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. So we have a few ways that you can import recipes. So you can do it by URL, you can do it by text, image, and also by email. I'll cover some of those in a bit. But what you asked is coming from URL. So what happens is you can enter a URL. Let's say you do your own. You find your favorite recipe from any site that you like, and you come to the app, paste the URL, and what we do is we parse that. That actually uses a library. We fall back to AI, but we don't start with AI. Most of the recipe websites have a defined schema that they follow, which is great. And so we're able to pull everything. We have the structure. So all the cooking time, the prep time, number of servings, all the ingredients, all the instructions, and extra metadata that's available, image and all that. So we can pull that in, and then we have a nice cleaned up recipe. It doesn't have all the ads and everything else. Makes it really easy. We always keep the attribution. So the URL, it'll have it. You can click on it. Sometimes you do need to go back to it. And what's the preamble for this? Or they have alternate options and things like that they might call out. So we keep that, but that starts with a schema. But what we're doing in this particular thing, we're serving this up as a REST endpoint within our environment. and using Python in this case. So our REST endpoints are done in Python, which is great for AI and machine learning and all that. And then what we do, there is a certain amount of AI that's used in this process too. We take it in, and then there's a certain categorization of each ingredient that isn't available in the schema that you get from the website. So that's done through AI. And then we do a lot of the JSON structuring. We make sure everything is structured in the way that we would have, because it comes sometimes through different formats. And then we have different schemas that are used. And so, yeah, that gives us some opportunity there. And then other times, that's actually from a URL. We can also import from a photograph now, take a picture. And it can be
like a picture of a finished dish or a cookbook page.
Real good question. And so the finished dish, we'll probably be adding that later on, which makes perfect sense. Go to a restaurant, take a picture, and say, how would I make this at home, right? So that is on a roadmap. But what we're talking about here is take grandma's recipe that's on a 3x5 card, or a cookbook that you want to take something, or the 3x5 card could be handwritten. So you can take, and in this case, we're using Microsoft Document Intelligence. So we kind of choose what's the best AI solution for each of these steps. It does give more moving parts, and sometimes some of these over time will even fail back. We'll probably have a primary and a secondary. If one fails, we just use the secondary because there's so many good options now. But that uses equivalent to OCR, but it's generative AI, and we can read the entire thing, even messy handwriting. It infers a lot of the letters based on the context. So even if it doesn't know every letter, it's still able to determine the whole context and fill in those gaps well. And then we can pull that in as an entire recipe that people can then edit. You can add pictures, you can tweak, make adjustments, and it becomes their recipe. They can save in the cookbook, or they can share with other people as well.
Nice. So in the end, even though it's using AI, it's still a software application, and it's a cluster of multiple software applications. So just so the developers listening can kind of imagine this, what are the deployed pieces? You got a website of some sort, you got a database of some sort, you got web services, and you got a mobile app. So what are the different kind of pieces that ultimately are deployed and running somewhere?
Right. Yeah, good question. So the app itself that's going to be on everyone's phone is a Flutter app, which is a Flutter, React Native, are two of the top players there. We'll then make that compatible with the iOS or Android. So that's living on each person's device. And a lot of the code is there locally so what you're doing is local. We actually are using now called PowerSync, which is, it synchronizes the data locally. So we have a database local first, and which is amazing. And that's a whole topic in itself. And then we have a PostgreSQL out in the cloud. So that's our database. We leverage Supabase, which is a platform as a service. So that's authentication, database, and web service endpoints. So we have certain web services, for example, API keys to the various generative AI. We don't want those on individual devices. So what happens is they authenticate to a web service. The web service then makes the call and answers back, and we don't have to worry about our keys scattered all over the place. And so we have the local device, we have the platform as a service, including the database and the endpoints. I mentioned we have our everything to do with the generative AI endpoints, the REST endpoints, and we have a few there, generating images, processing the recipes from various different imports, and some other services that we have there as well. And we're working on with one of our partners in Singapore is going to be a recipe database. So right now we're partnering with another company that offers a lot of the recipes. We have a couple 100,000 recipes that we have available through them, which is great. Yeah, and but what we're doing is, especially when we get to the Asia market, they're saying, well, these are good, but it's not really our local cuisine. Or other people, when we start to have, and we're building up a few partners, respected chefs and influencers, and we're able to take theirs and put this into a database. So that will also be exposed as a REST endpoint, but it becomes our entire recipe database. And then we can kind of intermix a little bit. We can use what we're doing. We use the save ones that people have on their own, and then we can serve up other ones. And those ones will give us opportunities for reviewers to go through the content, review them for diets, health considerations, quality? Have they been kitchen tested? Because our goal is not, at least now, to be AI generated recipes.
Mhm.
And, it's a good party trick. It's great. It can give people in the right direction, but a lot of people want things that are kitchen tested by real
That are
humans.
proven.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah,
We know how much it can generate something that's just totally wrong, and then it
exactly.
won't taste good.
hmm And it appears good. It makes sense when you look at it. Oh, that makes sense. Let's try it. Mhm.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
one of
so
the.
these are real recipes that are sourced from some other cookbook, recipe site, whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Nice.
exactly.
Very cool. Now this sounds very much like a distributed system, and this sounds like you have a process that's just sitting in the background with no UI, just churning away doing things. Is that
hmm
right? What and so besides web services, you've got some type of queuing and messaging going on, communicating back and forth. What'd you choose for that?
Yeah, actually, we don't have too much queuing. So our notifications are when notifications go through a queuing system.
Hmm.
Let me just see if I'm missing anything that we have. But no, most everything's in real time. I guess, one other interesting technology we have is you can send a recipe by email. And
Ooh.
inspiration I got is from TripIt. If you've used TripIt over the years,
Yes,
um,
all the time.
all the
Yep.
time, and you can just send an email to plans@tripit.com, or Expensify is another one. And
Yep.
so same inspiration. So you can send a recipe, just take it, attach a photograph of the food. You can have a photograph of the actual recipe, or just enter it as text and just send it to an email address, recipes@kitchencopilot.com. Based on your reply address, it takes that, processes, and drops it right off into your account in the app. And so that's one of the easiest ways to import a lot of recipes if you're trying to get your family recipes or create a cookbook for whatever reason.
And does that have to use generative AI, or is that just the document library to parse the email?
Yeah, so that we're using N8N, which is equivalent to Zapier or Make.com, or kind of the other players in that space for
Hmm.
automation. And it really is a workflow orchestrator to pull everything together. So the email, what it does is essentially watches for an email to arrive. As soon as the email arrives, it kicks it off. It parses the email, downloads the extensions, and confirms the email address is a valid email on the system. Otherwise, it replies back and says, we don't recognize this email. Please try from one that you had registered with, and some other places like that where it does those checks. And then it grabs the account information, so we know the default cookbook for that user. We know their name. We know a few things like that. And then we take what we've downloaded, both the text and images, and then that gets passed to the same REST endpoint I mentioned, which is so nice. It's just already built. It was so easy to put this together, really.
Yeah.
And then we just call that same REST endpoint, and we get back a structured recipe in JSON format that's compatible with what we need in the database. And then we just go and we just drop that off on their account. It uses proper row level security, so it can't cross over to another user by mistake. It's only within that user's account. And then once it finishes that, it sends an email back to the user and says it's there, and the user can go into the app. Typically takes about a minute, and they can go into it, and their recipe is there.
Nice. So what functions? Well, there's functions that are using generative AI. What model did you choose, and what LLM server or service did you choose?
Yeah, we've it's so easy to interchange them now, and you
Yep.
have to, whatever you do decide, in a few months you might replace it. So we've evolved through a few steps, using Grok. The Grok with the Q was one of the ones. So they host lightning fast inference on the API calls, and so we used the Llama. I think it was Llama 3.1 at the time. When 3.3 came out, we upgraded to that. We tried DeepSeek. So we have some good unit tests on all of these because there's so many different situations. So it's great. We just swap a new model in, make sure all the tests pass. If they do, we feel confidence to deploy that. And right now, I think we used DeepSeek for a while, and I think we're back. I'm trying to remember what we've just switched to just about a month ago. And so they're fairly interchangeable. I mean, at a certain point, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. you kind of stabilize, because we were tempted. I did most of this myself, but recently brought another Python developer part-time. He's doing a great job. Really appreciate him. And so he's working on that. And we were kind of tempted. Do we grab the latest, another model? And we're like, no, I mean, everything's working. There's no real valid reason to make a change apart from we're testing the latest and greatest. So at a certain point, once everything tests and everything is consistent, you leave it alone.
So is this the Grok that's hosted by X.com?
So there's two Grok. Yeah, there's two Grok. So this is the other Grok.
Okay.
Yep. Although we've recently been testing Grok with the K. So X.com or XAI is Grok. That's the Elon Musk Grok. And and actually that does very, very well for this as well. So we've done some tests as well. But Grok with a Q, GROQ, they're a hardware manufacturer. And so what they do is they take a lot of the open source models and they make them available. So as soon as you have
a hoster, just a compute hoster.
Yep. You got it.
Okay. All right. So then it sounds like you're running an Ollama server.
Is that equivalent, right? Except Ollama is local. So it's a hosted equivalent to an Ollama server.
Got it. And you have no idea what it actually is under the covers over there?
Well, they actually build their own what's called an LPU versus a CPU or a GPU.
Okay.
And a logical processor unit, or actually logistics. They have a couple different meanings for the L. But it's hardware that's dedicated for that purpose. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't taken off more, to be honest, because the way it works right now with the GPU, there's a lot of fires and misfires until you get the right answer. And so it's not really efficient. And you just throw more and more hardware at it to achieve it. The LPU is somehow able to achieve this in a single pass. The things that GPUs do and a lot more. So it makes it lightning fast. If you try it, if you go to grokgroq.com and ask a question, I mean, it's back in a fraction of a second, where you're used to taking 3 or 4 or 5 seconds with the other ones. And so I don't know, I'm a little bit baffled because I've been watching them over the last year as to why we don't see faster growth in that space. But I've enjoyed using them as an API provider because of that.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point on API provider, which I've fallen back to calling them LLM servers, or it's like we need a name for this class of service, right?
Yeah.
Have you stumbled? Is there one that might be getting traction?
No, I don't know, because you have, an LLM host, you have an LLM chatbot, right?
Yeah.
The chatbot is not really, like we think OpenAI, they're delivering models, but they also have a chatbot, and the chatbot's just a thin layer. It's not really the guts of it. So, I think it's kind of evolving the terminology throughout this whole process.
But it seems like for local development, you literally could have Llama 3.1 running in Ollama locally and just give it a different connection string, and you're doing all development locally just fine, right?
Yeah, I definitely could. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What about library with Microsoft Semantic Kernel and extensions, AI, and whatnot? What library have you found really useful for kind of an easy abstraction that you can just put in the connection string and use it?
Right. Yeah. You have ones like LangChain and Semantic Kernel and these type of ones that are good for orchestrating all of that. I mentioned N8N, so hosted, and that's for some of the solutions in the cloud. But our Python development is pretty straightforward. We're just using a local library. So we're using Claude. I did forget. We were using Claude for a long time. That's what I implemented at first.
Okay.
And so Claude for a long time, moved to Grok with the Q. And in both cases, just used a local library. And it's so few lines of code to do that and to swap them out. But something like Semantic Kernel, LangChain, to orchestrate all that, it makes perfect sense. Then you can swap between models. You don't have to relearn it. And they're standardizing, which is fortunate. They're not being too proprietary. So we're getting, as soon as one sets the pattern, like we see with the MCP servers with Claude, we're seeing the other ones catch on. And so, we would benefit from something like that, but we haven't needed to. It's pretty straightforward what we have.
Well, I want to close with just examination. You mentioned you have unit tests, so you can swap out the model. Everything is still working. What do those unit tests look like? Because people are used to now at this point having automated tests that are more than just unit tests, but maybe call out to a SQL Server or Postgres database, and they're using an ORM, and they're reaching out from the program to a dependency. So I got to set up that dependency. Um, and and everybody's familiar with chatbots, but are you asserting on big blocks of text? Are you doing really small operations? What philosophy have you developed for doing automated testing with code that calls out to a LLM?
Right. Yeah, and many people have taken this a lot further yet. The larger companies, there are frameworks for the automated testing and such. I'll just tell you what we have. And so I have both a combination of mocking and live. So when I do my local testing, everything is mocked, and I would simulate the first time what's the response I would typically get back from an LLM. That's mocked, and I can just test. As soon as I make a change, I can, seconds later, I've gone through the entire set of tests. And most of the tests, we have some unit tests. Most of them are actually integration tests. We just take what's the JSON result that we get at the end. Let's assert X amount of ingredients, X amount of instructions. The ingredients start with a capital letter because one time, whenever we have these edge cases and issues that occur, we just make sure that, number of servings is never zero. We have to decide how to handle those type of things. You get to divide by zero issues and all that. And so a lot of integration tests, and that's done with mocking and local framework there. And then we toggle it and do a one-time test before any deployment or from time to time that is against every LLM. So every endpoint that we have, we pull it down. So we're scraping recipes, or we're using simulated text, or we're using actual images or simulated words from images. And then it goes through each of those and then passes to the actual LLM. If we swap out the model, it just hits a different LLM instead, and make sure everything asserts true, everything's green. And if it isn't, then we explore that, what went wrong on that. So yeah, combination.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And all these pieces, it's hosted somewhere. Where's the application hosted?
The application, well, because it's distributed through mobile apps. So let's see here. No, this is the REST endpoint. So that's hosted in Azure. It's an Azure Function app. And
so Function.
Yep.
Now you got multiple deployed pieces. Are they all using an Azure Function, or are you using some of the different services?
Well, everything that I mentioned, the REST endpoints that are importing images, parsing URLs, everything like that, they live in one system. That's an Azure Function app.
In one function, yeah.
Yep, one function. And we have a few endpoints, but yeah, one function. And we deploy that. We test it in staging. It's blue-green. Everything works good. We do the swap, and then it goes live. Something goes wrong. We didn't realize, something that we didn't have an edge case test for. Then we can roll it back. And then, the rest is a local development machine where we do the test. It goes via a GitHub Actions. So in the GitHub Actions, it tests and makes sure everything passes before it can move along the pipeline too.
Nice. So you mentioned a Postgres database, right? Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is that in Azure as well?
No, that one is hosted by Supabase. So Supabase themselves, as a platform as a service, they host it. I believe they are AWS behind the scenes is where they host it.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's interesting when I hear people talking about functions, and certainly the way Microsoft positions it, they really push on the instant scale and elastic, up and down, whatnot, and of course they talk about small things, but like in your case, you got a lot of web services going on, a lot of processing going on, and the whole thing can sit right behind one Azure Function service and work just fine. We don't hear that kind of scenario being pushed very often or described in the documentation, but it sounds like it's working really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does, and it expect it to be able to scale quite a bit too with the Function app, because it doesn't have to be just one app. You can scale up within that. So it's I don't know, between a distributed and a monolith, but it's the web services is within one system that should be able to scale. It handles everything we do now very easily, and be able to auto scale.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, thanks for coming back on the show. I am certainly going to over the next couple of days be a busier user of Kitchen
Mhm.
Copilot because I tried it out a few times and then I set it aside, but then I tried it out again. You guys have made a lot of advancements and you're working on it pretty well. So I I find myself, scouring the web and looking at YouTube videos and saying, "Oh, I just got some of this stuff from my garden. I got some new squash and various things. Okay, what can I make with this
Mhm.
food that I just just became ripe in the garden?" And I'm going from video to that takes a lot of time. Sounds like I can save a lot of time by just starting with the ingredients and using
Mhm.
Kitchen Copilot. So I look forward to that.
Yeah. Oh, we hope it's the first place you go to for all these all the needs that you have in the kitchen and recipes for sure.
Nice, nice. And we'll include a link to everything we talked about in the show notes, kitchencopilot.net being one of them. But Scott, thanks for being with me today.
Yeah, do a .com. I think it's one of the domains we don't have is .net. So do a kitchencopilot.com will work.
Oh, you know what? You're right. A Google search sniped me.
Oh yeah,
I'll
there
correct that.
is someone else who had .net, but that's definitely not us. So yep,
kitchencopilot.com.
you got it.
Correcting that now. Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Jeffrey. Yeah.
And until next time, dear listener, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure and DevOps podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Visit our sponsor, ClearMeasure, at www.clearmeasure.com. And on behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.